It's 2009 in Baghdad, and the walls keep going up. As the American occupation enters its 7th year, Iraq remains in ruins, with over 1 million dead and 4 to 6 million refugees that have not begun to return home. Baghdad, a cosmopolitan center for thousands of years, has become a city of walled ghettos. What passes for peace in Iraq today is an exhausted truce in a terrible sectarian conflict. But how did the occupation turn into this? And what went wrong? April 2003, the new Iraq. Contrary to their predictions, the Americans were not welcomed as liberators.
It was a disaster. The American troops out there were acting kind of like robo-cops because they didn't know who the enemy was.
In spite of their religious differences, Sunnis and Shiites quickly united in a nationalist insurgency. By April 2004, 1 year after the fall of Baghdad, the U.S. faced simultaneous uprisings by Sunnis in Fallujah and Shiites in Najaf.
There was a feeling that we couldn't win that war. I had Marines say to me on patrol, "Hey, sir, don't you think they're really the nationalists and we're the invaders?"
June 2004. The U.S. military retreated in both Fallujah and Najaf, and the occupation quickly changed its course. A new team was brought into Baghdad, led by veterans from the Central American dirty wars of the 80s. The El Salvador option began to split the Sunni and Shia resistance against each other. Quickly organized elections were structured to bring the most sectarian Shiite Islamist parties to power, and their militias were incorporated into the Iraqi military and police.
I rejected the incorporation of militias into the institutions.
Even America's old allies were alarmed by the sudden change in strategy.
Unfortunately, when the Islamists took over, the militias were merged with the institutions. And this continues until now, to the extent that really, especially as far as the police is concerned, nobody can trust 100%.
Here at Camp Dublin, the Americans trained elite units within the Iraqi police with names like the Wolf Brigade and the Scorpion Brigade. Iraq's ruling Shiite parties quickly filled these brigades with their own militias. They are widely accused of committing torture and summary executions. Many consider them to be Shiite death squads, bent on purging the Sunnis from Baghdad.
The Salvador option basically depended on creating a local indigenous security force that would fight the insurgency.
Peter Moss wrote the first expose on the El Salvador option. He witnessed and documented numerous human rights violations.
The commandos were a very powerful weapon that were then used for extremely violent sectarian ends.
Another kidnapped, Anwar Yusuf. His arms were drilled and he had a bullet in his head.
Abu Wassam keeps a record of hundreds of dead from his neighborhood that he claims were victims of U.S.-backed militias. He believes the Americans intentionally created a civil war to split the insurgency.
The Sunnis were attacking U.S. forces, and the only way to shift these attacks was to change it into a fight between the Sunnis and the Scorpion and Wolf brigades, who were armed and trained by the United States. The Americans were the fuel of the sectarian violence in Iraq.
In the U.S., this violence was presented as part of a centuries-old sectarian conflict, and the American military was seen as a peacekeeper between the two sides.
It's not true at all. This all started as one of the grave mistakes that the American administration committed in Iraq.
2007, the awakening. Sunni and Shiite insurgents had turned their weapons on each other, but the Sunni resistance continued to grow, and American strategy changed once again. The U.S. began to look for Sunni militia allies, and many Sunni insurgents, outnumbered and locked in a bitter sectarian fight, began to sign up. America's new militia allies called themselves the Awakening. Here in Taji, Captain Wolgawith and his men used to face 3 attacks a week. They have not been hit once since the launch of the Awakening program.
Right, safe.
Today, Captain Wolgawith calls these men freedom fighters, but he knows that a few weeks ago they were called insurgents.
Every one of these guys shot at us at one time in our life. Oh, there you go. Look at the freedom fighters. Assalamu alaikum.
The Awakening may have bought a temporary lull in violence for the U.S. to announce its withdrawal, but this is a fragile truce without reconciliation. The past months have seen pitched battles between the Iraqi army and the Awakening militias, arrests of militia leaders, and an upturn in car bombings and mortar attacks on Shiite neighborhoods. And the U.S. continues to arm both sides in the sectarian conflict.